Gather around, Skull brothers and sisters. This is Skull World, brought to you by Minnesota Sports Talk. I'm your host, Dave. You can follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook at Skull World. I brought on Nick Miller from Climbing the Pocket. Let's go. Let's skull. Hey, Nick, tell us all the places we can find you, man.
Hey, Dave, thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, you can find me on the Climbing the Pocket YouTube channel. But then you can find me personally on Twitter at Nicholas M. Miller. And that's where you'll find most of my work. But I just keep sending things out through Twitter. So if you really want to find me, that's the place to go.
I'll share that in the comments, by the way. At least your Twitter. If there's anything else you want to send me, I'll put that on there too. But hey, I think the where I found you, or you found me, which I think it was more you finding me, and then I was like, hey, come on my show, was I interviewed Thor Nystrom, and I posted that to Twitter, and you shared some really useful information, and that's the kind of stuff I would love to have on our show as often as I can. So it would be awesome. I would definitely probably be asking you back to talk about it. An analytical mind is well needed on our show, in my channel. We don't have many of them, including myself. So hey, we talked about having a little bit of a format. Just if you watch the entire show, everybody, we're going to talk about what short term and long term, with and without Kirk, couple of different scenarios. And the first thing we're going to talk about is, what it would look like with Kirk. And just start off, and I might interject and ask you questions about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so looking at what the Vikings have going on this offseason, which we all agree is a massive offseason for the Vikings, not only for the team, but Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell. And the first and ultimate domino is what we do with Kirk Cousins. The quarterback position is the biggest, influencer of team success, takes up the most salary cap, is the face of your franchise. And so, we've been on this, merry-go-round with Kirk Cousins for the last, 6 years. And so, this is the first time in which we're entering a negotiation period where he has access to the market. And both publicly, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, Kevin O'Connell, and Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson and everyone have talked about how that they would like Kirk Cousins back, on the team. And so, if you
even Alexander Madison.
Yes, sorry, I didn't want to do any Alexander Madison erasure. He did that too. I'm sure there's other players as well that have said that. So all of them that are included, I throw them in there. And then you look at things like those things are somewhat unreliable at this point. But if you look at DraftKings Sportsbook, who are the odds-on favorite to have Kirk Cousins? I think he's at -200, and then you look at the next team. I think is Atlanta Falcons at +300. So that's a sizable gap. We
used to be third or fourth at one point, if I'm not mistaken, in some.
So there was one on bookies.com in which
that's what it was. Yeah,
that was a one that was like a theoretical odds. So I'm pretty sure the DraftKings one is like real odds you can go on and bet on right now. And so that's when they take things a little bit more seriously. And so, when you look at that and you do all those things together, or if you look at a lot of the mock drafts recently, I think some of them are having us do quarterbacks, but I keep looking at them. These prominent mockers have, edge, cornerback, all over the place, anything but quarterback. So I think there's a lot of expectation that Kirk Cousins is back, for the Vikings. And so, what that means is that, from my perspective, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell look at last year and some of the things that they're doing, look at what Kirk Cousins was doing in the first half of the season. They want to get back on that and say we can pick up right where we left off and we can be competitive. We almost made the playoffs, starting 3 backup quarterbacks after Kirk. If we just put the pieces together, we bring everyone forward, that we're going to be able to really make a run at trying to reclaim the NFC North and make the playoffs. And I think their strategy over the last few years is say, let's compete for the division, let's get into the playoffs, and then see what happens. And that's been the kind of the crux of the competitive rebuild strategy is, let's move on. Let's try to do things to clear up the cap at the same time, remaining competitive. And, Kirk Cousins is the ultimate quarterback at making sure that you have a solid, 7, 8, 9 wins in a season. You're never going to go any lower than that.
Someone to piggyback off of that argument, I often have that defense of going the Kirk route. I'm all for trading up and getting Jordan Daniels, anybody listen to this, do not accuse me of not wanting to draft a quarterback. I was high on Ritter. I was high last year on obviously CJ Stroud, but I wanted Anthony Richardson because I thought we could possibly get him. And then this year I'm like Jordan Daniels, JJ McCarthy. So no one can accuse me of not wanting a quarterback. I want to draft one every year. But you make a point like Kwesi, you might want to go after it because he saw what we did. But he also, as we have a better cap situation these next 2 years, give me 2 years. And my argument would be in that situation is give me 2 years of drafting and free agency with the defensive coordinator we have, and let me keep that offense and see what we can do.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I think Brian Flores, has been a huge boon to that team. I think that he was able to cobble, some players together that were probably less than the whole of their parts and made them something better, as a collective unit. I think that there's a lot of room for growth. There's a lot of depth needed on that defense. And because of his scheme, he made it better than I think anyone expected, heading into last year. I think we were like, oh, if we could just finish like the 20th defense in the league, like that would be, amazing. But we certainly finished a little bit higher than that. And, that's credit to him and giving him another year with his scheme, getting some more, fresh talent in there, maybe a few high draft picks, a few, select free agents here that he handpicked. I could see where we might start cooking on the defense, if you have that perspective.
Yeah. And you really don't need to be. I mean, the Patriots, but they've won with like a 29th ranked defense. There are teams that have won with lower end defenses. We actually have a defense in the mid range. Once you're 15 or higher, those Super Bowl champions start to look. There's a lot more of them with the 15 or higher defense, and the two teams that were in it this year had really good defenses. So I think if we could get there with the defense consistently, and if we would have closed it out, if we had a healthy Kirk and we would have closed it out, one of the things people don't point out is, hey, if Kirk didn't get hurt, we might have been buyers at the market. You know what I'm saying? I never hear that point given. Like, oh, we would have just been terrible and the defense would have sucked at the end of the year. No, we could have been buyers instead of, and we held strong and just kept who we had and traded off Cleveland. But, that's something that people didn't look at is that, hey, we could have been buyers at that point.
The only thing that now you asked for the kind of the analytical mindset. So
give me analytics. I want it.
So give
me more.
Yeah. So, where we were at mid-year through the season, we were a 4-4 team, and there was a lot of talk about, what was the exact cause of that? Well, obviously turnovers played a factor, and just some inconsistency across the board. But overall, if you look where our numbers were at the time, we weren't really in a spot when you look at things like DVOA, which and expected points added or point differential. We were just analytically behind the top teams in the league. Now we could have traded for someone and that might have improved the thing, but I think that there's a lot of people that look at what happened with the San Francisco game or things like that and say, we could have competed with this team and that. Well, it's certainly possible. You never know what's going to happen during the season, but I think it's a little bit of a revisionist history a lot because I think that a lot of fans want to have this optimistic view of where things are. But I think with Kwesi Duffy-Mensah in this front office, they're very much, especially Kwesi, they look at it and say, what does that data say? What does that, where does it rank us according to the rest of the league? And really around that time, we were probably, because I remember talking about it on my show for Climbing the Pocket, that we were probably around the 12th to 14th analytically best team in the league. And normally year after year, you're seeing the teams that are, going deep into the playoffs, they're like top 5 in DVOA and stuff.
So explain DVOA to me.
Yeah. So DVOA takes account of where a team or how a team performs, throughout the game when they have the lead, and certain analytical metrics. And it's been proven over time to show, if you just look back and say, which teams have been in the Super Bowl and where they rank in the DVOA every single year, it's usually in the top 5, top 6, top 7, if not the top 1 team, are always the teams that are going deep in the playoffs. It's extremely rare, and I don't think it's even happened in the last 5 or 6 years for a Super Bowl team to not be one of the top 5 to 7 DVOA teams, because it really accounts for like how good are you actually when you're playing teams, and it also measures against the other top teams in the league. So if you're playing the worst team in the league, and you're barely, like for example when the Vikings beat the Panthers early on in the season, we all know that the Panthers are the worst team in the league this year. So when we barely
Yeah, I think
won
we
that.
had 7 drops that game.
Yeah, right. I mean, so those drops and stuff are like an indication that like you're not truly ready to perform at top level. And I think a lot of fans will see those 7 drops and be like, well, as long as we clean up those 7 drops, we're going to be good to go. But
And
if you're
yeah,
having
and a pick 6.
yeah, if you're having those consistent errors and stuff, over time, that's not an indication that you just need to get past it. It's an indication that there are some flaws with your team, especially if it happens. If it happens one game, that's one thing, but if it happens over a consistent enough time frame, that displays that maybe you're not as good as what a fan wishes you were or you want to be. And so
To
I.
play devil's advocate there a little
Mhm,
bit, um, you mentioned turnovers. We were like -11, and
mhm,
we actually kind of solved our turnover issue around Kansas City. We only turned the ball over once. It happened to be the first play of the game. But those last 3 games of Kirk Cousins, we didn't turn the ball over. And like you said, San Francisco and the Packers, we were pretty good. And honestly, we had the Kansas City almost in hand too if it went our way. But up until that point, we were like -11 or something in turnovers, and a lot of them were in the red zone.
mhm.
So scoring was down because we were literally giving up points because of how. And that was one of the things they always have this unlucky thing. We were worst at we'd fumble, but we would not recover it. Worse than
Right.
any team in the
Yeah.
league.
Yep.
How much does that play into? Is that a factor in there? Like, it's a negative factor in there too, isn't it?
Mhm.
Like DVOA,
It
because
is. Yeah.
we were giving up the ball in the red zone or fumbling out of the end zone against
Mhm.
the Eagles.
Yeah, there's like ebbs and flows, right? So like I remember, 'cause I remember this. I got some pushback on it at the time. I was talking about when we were like 1-3 or whatever our record was at the time. I was actually on my show saying, because at that point everyone was like, fire Quasey, Kevin O'Connell's in over his head. Like this is an awful team. Like you
They
didn't
brought out
build.
the big
Yeah, yeah,
sticks to hit the players with to
yeah,
keep them from
they were
fumbling.
they were going nuts. And at that time, I was saying, we're 1-3 or whatever, but we're actually like the 13th or 14th DVOA team in the leagues. The sky's not falling. We're having some bad luck, and it's showing because of some of the underlying, like our ability to move the ball. Some things we were doing on defense, like up until the turnover
Our
portion of it.
defense wasn't looking good though at the beginning of the year either.
No, no, no. I mean, but there were some things that we were doing that were that's what's one of the benefits of analytics. It was showing out and saying that this team is not as bad as we were expecting.
Hmm.
And then we went on their win streak, and the opposite. And then our fans are starting riding high and saying, "Oh, well, we're just going to run the table. Like we're gonna do all this." When in reality, it was just the variance of like the turnovers and stuff, and some of the things that were bouncing back our late and the things that we were then going on the win streak with, you know, then it was still balancing out. We were basically the same team the entire time when it comes to our ability to move the ball and some things that we were doing. It was just a matter of wins and losses were coming via the turnovers or not turnovers. And so, we were better than we were, or we were actually better than we thought when had a poor record, but we were kind of worse than we thought when we thought that we were cruising and on the win streak. It was kind of really a balanced out team of where we were actually. I could look this up and maybe I can send it to you for the show notes. But
Sure.
DVOA has a variance number that they use, throughout the year of like how much does your team change from week to week in the way that they produce analytically. And the Vikings were one of the lowest variant teams in the entire league of how consistent they were, especially in the first part of the year from week to week. It was just a matter of the turnovers and the different things that didn't bounce
I would
our
have been
way.
really interested to see, yeah, from like the Kansas City game, like
Mhm.
to the can when we went to play Kansas City, and then obviously San Francisco and in the Packers, of what it was like. Was there a change there? Did it like, oh hey, we're a lot better now, or
Mhm.
did it stay the same? I didn't.
And there was a streak there for a while too, where our defense was performing better. Like we did have a big jump over a period of time, and it was their offense that was actually lagging for a while, even with Kirk as well. And so it's been it's been months since this happened, so I'm trying to rehash this
Oh,
whole
yeah.
thing. But I'd be happy to send you some of
Yeah. Gee,
the data
I
on
would,
that, so that way that
sure.
you can check it out yourself, and the viewers can as well.
So yeah, continue on with the Kirk solution.
Yeah, and so like I think that the Vikings do have a path in front of them where if they want to go the Kirk route again, and we can talk about what that contract means in a second, because I think that there has to be a specific spot the Vikings have to get to in order to actually get Kirk to sign. Um, is that you're really buying in, and you're really thinking that you can compete this year, because the other path you have, and we'll talk about it in a second too, is if you move off from Kirk, you have the ability to reset. It kind of
Mhm.
changes expectations, because I mean, if we go 8-9 with Kirk Cousins next year, after kind of running it back with him in that approach, and then or we reset and we go 8-9 with a rookie quarterback, or something like that, those are going to feel completely different to fans, right? Like if we have Kirk back, we're expecting that we're going to make the playoffs. We're expecting that we're going to make a run. That's why you signed the big time quarterback, is because you expect between him and Justin Jefferson, and when we get TJ Hawkinson back and Jordan Addison, that they're going to be able to roll, and all the things you said, like Brian Flores is going to have a defense, and we're expecting big things if that happens. But if you have a rookie quarterback, what you're really looking for is, can Jayden Daniels or JJ McCarthy, or pick your guy, show strides throughout the year? And we expect some growing pains too with a rookie quarterback. And so, what we're looking for is like kind of like a, CJ Stroud probably overperformed this year, even what the expectations were. But if we were to go
Probably.
in and
I tell people the NFL will figure you out. We'll see.
right, that's definitely possible. But I mean, if we were, let's say after the last few years, if we were flirting with a wild card berth, or even snuck into the playoffs, that would feel a lot more optimistic for the future than if we did
Mm.
if we did that with Kirk Cousins. And so I think
I,
that if you're facing Kevin O'Connell, you're really going to have high expectations set on you from the fan base and the media, that if you bring Kirk back, that you're really going to have to compete. And so I think one of the things that they're evaluating right now is not only, what would it take to get Kirk Cousins signed, but also, what are all the things that we need to do in order, what players do we need to sign? What development do we need to see? How do we need to, really nail the draft in order to fix up whatever holes that we have on the roster, in order to get us to, instead of flirting with a playoff berth, are we then competing for the number 2, number 3, or even number 1 seed in the NFC?
yeah, I think there was a lot of people thought we were in. I wasn't alone. 11. Like it was like the worst predictions were like 10 wins. Even with
Mhm.
the biggest Kirk naysayers last year was 10 wins. I had us at 12-win season the year before, and we won 13. I didn't think we were a 13-win team after the season because of our defense being so bad, and I blame that all
Yeah.
on one dude who is no longer a defensive coordinator, because I think we didn't have that bad of defense. We just had that bad of a scheme. But now we have Flores, so I feel a lot better about that. I wish we had Flores in 2022. I think it might have ended up a little bit differently. We might have went a little bit deeper. But yeah, you're saying if we go in for it, and that's one of the things I wanted you to talk about is what is in for what is go for it? Are you talking about Kirk, Daniil, extend Justin, go get a free agent or two, hit the draft? What does it look for you?
So yeah, so if they're going in for it, this is what I would expect them to do. So right now, I think most people know that there's a large dead cap hit with, Kirk
28
Cousins,
and point 5.
28.5 million dollars for Kirk Cousins if he's not signed the roster. So as of right now, what they can do, no, regardless if they extend Kirk or not, or let's put it this way: if they extend Kirk, $10.25 million of that dead cap money is still going to be on the cap hit for 2024. And
Unless
then
you can
so that
absorb that, or
so
is it
that
just
it's
automatically
dead.
dead?
So what will happen if they extend Kirk Cousins is, of that 28 million, 10 million will stay on the cap this year, and they'll
Like, you
move.
can't move that is what I'm saying. You can't absorb that because a lot of people, including myself, had the impression, like, I didn't know anybody who said that they couldn't move that. You're saying
So
you can't move it.
So you can, if you sign him, if he's on the roster again next year, you can move 18 million of it into the future because right now he's got 4 or 5 void years on it. What happens with the rule is basically if you have whatever void years you have, once you leave the team, all those void years end and they accelerate all to
Yeah, I
next year.
know yeah, I know that part, and I think pretty much the listeners do too.
Okay.
Um,
So
I just
he's
thought you could move that because didn't he wasn't this past year originally a void year? Or no, yeah, because of Spielman. I thought that's what it was originally.
So they last year they took some money and there was some void year and they basically cut his salary and pushed it into this year. It was
So
about
they flipped the like that
16 million. Yeah, they
that'd
flipped
be
the years in
so
which they owed him the money.
so equivalent would be like take 10 and a half or whatever, 10 million off his salary this year and push 10 of it to the future. That's I guess that's the same thing almost, except you know what I'm saying? Because they cut his salary to where his cap hit was, and it had his cap hit like 20 million this year because they pushed money to the void years. They could do
Right.
that. One of the things they could do, not that that's ideal or I'm pushing for this, is I guess that's what it would be if if you wanted not to get that full 10.5 million or whatever dead cap hit this year and add it on to his salary of 40 million and make it a $50 million cap hit, you could reduce his salary, increase the future years, or add
Yep.
void.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, we're on the same page then. Never mind.
Yeah. So here I'll tell you exactly what a theoretical contract could look like. So he's got, let's say if we'd sign him to a 2 year, $75 million fully guaranteed deal. So what we could do is so the dead cap hits right now for each of the next few years are 10, 10, 4, and 4. Using there's like some $2,500,000 here and there. So if we did the 2 year, $75 million, here's what his cap hits could do. We could take 25 this year and pair it with the 10, and we have a $35 million hit in 2024. We could do the same thing next year. So $25 million added to the 10 we already owe could be a $35 million cap hit. But then when let's say he's done, he retires or something in 2 years, he's no longer the team, we'll still have a $33 million cap hit because of the 25 left on the 25, 25, and 25, and then the
Okay.
8 million in the dead cap. So a realistic thing, if we did 2 years, $75 million, his next three years as cap hits could be 35, 35, and 33, because we still have the 75 million that we'd give him in the new contract, and then the 28 million that we still owe to the cap from the dead cap hit. So it's really
And like PFF came out with 39 and a half, so that might look like it would be a $40 million cap hit.
Right.
At the
So
end,
yeah,
at dead cap hit at the end. Yeah.
yeah. So something like that. So we would definitely be, and this gets into also why I don't know that signing Kirk and a rookie quarterback make a lot of sense together, because if let's say we trade up or take JJ McCarthy, this year, say we just stay at 11, we take JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, now we're in the scenario where we get Kirk and we add a rookie quarterback. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So we're picking 11. We take JJ McCarthy. So we have Kirk for each of the next 2 years on that contract that we just talked about, and then in the third year, we have that 33 or more $1 million dead cap hit. So
Yeah.
if you look at what a rookie scale contract for a quarterback looks like, if you take him around 11th pick, you might owe him something like $6 or $7 million per year for the first 4 years, and then you have the option of the fifth year, on the rookie scale contract if he's a first round pick. Well, that fifth year is probably more like somewhere in the $25 million range. It's more like a mid level contract because of the way that you calculate out what that fifth year is in the contract. So if you really look at it, Kirk Cousins and his contract hits of 35, 35, and 33 million would essentially erase 3 years of the benefits of that rookie scale contract. And so really what you'd end up having is 1 year of the rookie contract and then that 5th year option year, which is more like the 22, $23 million year. And really, if for someone that's analytically minded like Kwesi and really wants to take advantage of the low cap hits that come with a rookie scale contract, it really wouldn't make a lot of sense to me of why you'd want to erase basically 75% of the very cheap years of a rookie quarterback contract, right? I think it'd make more sense. And ideally, what I think they wanted to do, and you mentioned like signing or drafting Anthony Richardson last year, is that they only wanted to match up 1 year
1 year, yeah.
of Kirk Cousins and a rookie quarterback, and then you still have the void year, so you'd have essentially 2 years taken up by the Kirk contract, and then you'd still have half the rookie scale contract to go. I think in an ideal world, that's a little bit more acceptable to the Vikings and to Kwesi. Like you want to be able to take advantage of the rookie contract, but you think that there is some real value in having him learn under Kirk for a year. But based upon what we know about what Kirk wants in his deal, I don't think he's settling for anything less than 2 years, guaranteed. And I think, I know PFF and Brad Spielberger put out the contract of, not having that whole second year guarantee. But I think even since then, he said that he doesn't think that that's really realistic moving forward, knowing, who Kirk is as a business guy. So, I think it's a really hard pathway.
Well, I don't think there's a quarterback that has signed an extension that didn't at least have 2 years guaranteed on it.
Right. And so then the other thing to consider too is that we were just talking about, okay, if you sign Kirk, what are those expectations for this next year? And if you're signing Kirk and you're giving more money and you have more cap space taken up on that front, if you're going all in, you probably want to try to bring back Danielle Hunter, right?
Yep.
You're signing Justin Jefferson to a big contract, and then you're not going to have a ton of cap space to be able to really maneuver in free agency to get the guys you want. So when it comes to how do you fill holes or improve your roster, you're probably going to need pick 11 in order to sign a defensive end or something like that to really make your team compete. And so and that definitely rules out. It's not like you're going to then trade pick 42 and future draft picks as well to trade up to get Jayden Daniels or something. So you're really kind of, if you bring Kirk back, I think your expectations for the season are high. So you're going to need to use your current draft pick, to help support the defense or improve that, or, pick up a player there. And then also you don't want to use that on a quarterback because you're just going to, waste, 3 years of his rookie scale contract. And so from my perspective, I've seen a lot of talk about how can we thread that needle of both getting excited about a rookie quarterback this year and then also extending Kirk Cousins, for a few years, and how to make that work. And just when it gets down to the dollars and cents and the practicalities of with that rookie scale contract and what the Vikings would need to do in order to really compete and lean into Kirk Cousins, I don't think that those two match up.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely, one of the issues we've had over the years, and they say it's been Kirk eating so much of the contract, so much of the cap space. I think he was ranked 15th this year in average contract value, and his cap hit was 20, and we still couldn't, and we still had holes. But one of the things that other teams have been able to do, like a Kansas City, who now has a expensive quarterback, is hit on their draft picks. Whereas San Francisco has been able to hit on their draft picks. The Rams had, like, when they won their Super Bowl, had like over $60 million worth of cap hit to the quarterback positions because we were also getting, the golf money too. So it's like hitting on your draft picks is important, and that's something we haven't done. And people we haven't put anything towards the offensive line. Everybody on that offensive line is a first or second round pick.
That's right.
It's draft picks. You got to hit on those. And one of the bright sides is we did get an Addison. A Blackman looks like a really good piece. And honestly, I like our D tackle that we got last year.
Oh, Jaquelin Roy.
Jaquelin Roy. I like him. And that's and then also, obviously Pace. Wow, we just got what I felt like would be potential starters on this team. In above average or better eventually, if not already. And one of the things in the draft wise is if you do take a quarterback, and this is just is that interior D line is pretty deep in this draft. And I'm looking at mock drafts and I'm like sitting there with a third or fourth round pick going, damn, which one do I take? There's so many. But yeah, and that would be a situation where you probably have to Daniil and want him back. Hopefully, want him at a prove it deal off the injury, and you get him pretty cheap. So where he can go back into free agency and healthy and actually get a big payday, which I don't think he'll get coming off an injury. So yeah, you got to rely on that draft pretty heavily. Good news is we got 9 picks.
Right.
And if we do move back in the first round and still take a defensive player, and we might recoup that third round pick and have 10 picks or more in this draft.
Yep, absolutely. And that's stuff. If we were to extend Kirk Cousins, that's the strategy I'd want to do. I think that there's a sweet spot in there with like Newton, that defensive tackle from Illinois, or Jared Verse, or some of these edge players. That if we extend Kirk, we should definitely trade back from that first round pick at 11, and pick up a third rounder, as you said, or something like that. Take a defensive player, and just like keep heavily investing and build up that depth on that defense. And the other point I want to make is you're 100% right. I think that 2022, we were drafting for different defensive coordinator, different defensive scheme, and they didn't really hit on the guys anyway, and so that really hurt. And I think Rick Spielman had a few duds of drafts.
He's like 50. He's like 50% on first round picks and second round picks.
Right. And that's if we had drafted better, this team would be in a whole lot better spot, especially on defense, to be able to compete. And then bringing back Kirk, might make a lot more sense of like we're being able to make a real run, at it. But we didn't draft well, and I think that sometimes gets some kind of misconstrued when you talk about the challenge of maybe meeting expectations if you bring Kirk back, and people think that that's a slight at Kirk, and it doesn't have to be Kirk's fault that we didn't draft well or do anything like that. It's really looking at where this team is and where we have holes. Like we don't even have any quality defensive. You mentioned Wanham and Hunter. We really don't have a quality edge player on our team right now. So there's lots of holes that need to be fixed on our team. Not Kirk's fault. It's not like Kirk was in the draft room, with Spielman or Kwesi doing it, but it just sets up a scenario where this is why we're having so much conversation this offseason about bringing Kirk back. Is the team in a right spot to compete, with considering everything that needs to be filled and all the help that we need to meet those expectations of actually having a deep run in the playoffs. And so that's where you really have to get down and what I think they're talking about in TCO is, can we make that happen? How much do we want to commit to Kirk moving forward? Do we want to really get our quarterback this year? And if we want to get our quarterback this year, it doesn't make really much sense anymore to do that and bring Kirk back. And so I think those are really all the discussions that are happening right now. But I want to plead to people, because I think there's a lot of people, when you talk about the suggestion of not bringing Kirk back, I think people get quite defensive of Kirk and say, like, look at his stats, look at all he's done, look who he is as a top, 10 to 12, quarterback. But at the same time, the rest of the team has to be there to support Kirk for that to make sense.
So I get a lot of listeners that don't like to hear about Kirk all the time, but now, so they'll probably love this segment. Moving on from Kirk, and what would that be like?
Well, that opens up a whole world of possibilities, right? Because you don't have.
If you tell me Sam Darnold's going to be your quarterback, no, I'm just kidding.
Well,
go ahead. No, go ahead, man. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, Sam Darnold or whoever, I think people look at it and hear Sam Darnold and they're like, oh no, this is.
Hey, we got a first round draft pick.
That's right. He's former top draft pick, but it's not. The idea wouldn't be for Sam Darnold to be your starter. The idea of Sam Darnold would be to have him come in and be competition for your rookie quarterback for through training camp and stuff, and use Sam Darnold as a barometer. It's saying if your rookie quarterback is performing better than Sam Darnold, that's a pretty good indication that he's ready to start, right? So,
quick question there.
Yeah.
So I've made this point about if we got a rookie quarterback, and I'm like, I did a video on this, and I'm like, my biggest haters agree with me on this one. Is like, if we're going to draft a quarterback and not have Kirk Cousins, I want a guy that can. I don't want a guy to come in and compete with him. I want a guy that can mentor him. And if you bring in a free agent, This guy's learning the offense. He's not going to be teaching our boy anything, but Nick Mullins, who's obviously well versed in the offense, can run it really well. He just lacked the physical arm strength to make some of the throws he tried to attempt. But there's no doubt that this guy knows the offense. In fact, when he went out there, he did checks and more than Kirk Cousins did, and he looks like he can handle that. And he's also proved that he's a team player. And we just got him for one more year. Let's just have this guy either start or mentor this guy until he's ready to start. I don't like Russell Wilson coming in. He's not going to be mentoring anything. And I'm like, Tannehill says, I don't mentor quarterbacks. It's like, that's not my job. These guys are coming in to compete to win the job so they can live longer in this NFL. I don't think that's going to help our rookie quarterback any. I would think, having that good chemistry in the locker room that we have right now, that in that quarterback room that we have right now, is keep that going and don't bring a guy off the street. I mean, just this is the point. Kirk Cousins was well liked. If he goes away and then you say, hey, we're going to bring a stranger into the quarterback room and he's going to compete against the guys that have been here and he's going to compete against the rookie. I don't see that as a good mesh in the quarterback room when we're trying to bring this guy and have him start right away. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that
this is the word. This is it. That was gold. You can't argue with that. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead, man.
I think that players and agents are sophisticated in understanding what their expectations are for a team. So if you're Sam Darnold and you're going to end up signing with the Vikings, you already know that the Vikings are drafting a rookie quarterback, and part of your job is to help be there to support him. That's part of the reason you're getting paid, right? Now, where I think you brought up the Ryan Tannehill example, Ryan Tannehill was the starter, and then they drafted a quarterback. He didn't sign with the team after they drafted the quarterback. The rookie quarterback was the one that was added to the room. And so from his perspective, this guy's a direct threat to my livelihood, and I didn't expect this to happen, right?
Well, more so, just to clarify, more so like bringing in Sam Darnold or a Tannehill, because now they're coming to our team, is how much are they going to be? They don't know the offense at all at this point. Mm-hmm. And it took Kirk, even though Kirk was fifth in passing, fifth in touchdowns the year before, and he was leading it this year in touchdowns and second in passing, he looked better this year than he did the year before on how he was handling the offense. A guy coming in trying to learn this offense, which seemed to be pretty complicated, everybody was telling me. And then how is he going to teach the rookie? And that's why I'm like advocate. If we go this route, just stay with Nick Mullins.
I think staying with Nick Mullins is fine. We're going off the Sam Darnold. I'm not saying that we need to bring in Sam Darnold. I'm just saying
I'm just using him as a name is all.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing that you have to consider is that how realistic is it, and how much are we really putting credence in that this veteran quarterback actually has to be a mentor to the rookie quarterback. When you look at the NFL team and the coaching staff, you got Kevin O'Connell, former quarterback. Obviously, we expect him to be QB whisperer. You got Wes Phillips, our offensive coordinator, who's obviously supposed to be a good offensive mind. And then you have Ardansky, our quarterbacks coach, and then we have an assistant quarterbacks coach as well. Their job are the ones that help teach, the rookie the offense. What I think you're really looking for when it comes to bringing in a veteran guy or Nick Mullins or something, it's not necessarily them to be the ones to teach the offense per se. It's for them to be a good role model and saying that this is how a professional handles, their duties at quarterback. This is the work that needs to go in each and every week. This is how, showing up on time or hitting the weight room earlier, or how you interact with someone else, or this is what a professional quarterback looks like. And I think Kirk is the ultimate professional quarterback, which is why I think that he would have been I think it's more about, do you have a guy that's a good role model, for your rookie quarterback, rather than being a mentor that you're relying to teach them the offense? Because why are we paying, those four guys as members of our coaching staff if they're not there to teach the offense? Really what it is do you know what being a professional quarterback looks like from a model standpoint is really what I think that the job is of that veteran guy in the room. I think Nick Mullins would be great at that.
Well, once the season starts, you that those backup quarterbacks may not throw a ball. That's
Yeah, right, and which is why, it's so important it's so important for, like, that assistant QB coach or whatever. If I were the Vikings and I was Kevin O'Connell, if I got a rookie quarterback, I would assign my assistant quarterbacks coach, I don't know who it is off the top of my head or if we've hired one,
and we
to
don't care
basically
about that guy.
yeah, just sit there, and your job is to answer every single question, work through, and basically be the shadow of that rookie quarterback to help him learn the offense. I mean, that's kind of my goal. And then have the veteran quarterback do his own thing. But when you're in the quarterback room together and everyone's kind of talking and looking through, or you're on the practice field, or you want that rookie quarterback to see what a real professional quarterback looks like. I think that's the model. Because if you got like you know, rookie quarterback X, JJ McCarthy in there with Jaron Hall, you're not really getting the real, this is how a professional does it, or here's how a professional does it on a winning team, or Sam Darnold just went to the Super Bowl as a backup quarterback with San Francisco. He knows what being a quarterback in a quarterback room during the playoffs and stuff looks like. That's the kind of experience and example I think would be very important for our rookie quarterback.
You've opened my eyes to Sam Darnold. I'm kidding. You've opened my eyes. You opened my eyes to other attributes a player from another team might bring. I always just leaned on, hey, how is this guy going to help you if he has the same questions as you do? So
Right,
as
right.
far as yeah,
Yeah,
so that it's I see both ways. I
yeah, and
guess
I think a lot of people too, this has been a point I've been trying to make recently on Twitter, is they look at the Packers model, of saying like, okay,
I
you
wasn't going to
know,
bring it up, but yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
so you've had the success. You went from Favre to Rodgers to Love, and Love looks good, which is horrible for us, keeps us up at night. But the other thing that people don't point out is that the quarterback coach, the offensive coordinator, the guy that's been there for every transition the entire time is a guy named Tom Clements, who's either been an offensive coordinator or a quarterbacks coach for the last 30 years. And he was with the Packers. He's basically been with the Packers for this entire experience, from the transition from Favre to Rodgers and then Rodgers to Love. And they love the guy and they won't ever leave him. And so when they actually, I think he went away for a few years. He was off coaching some other team as a quarterback coach. And then when they drafted Love, they brought him back. And so I think what you have is people believing in this model of the Green Bay Packers, of like, what you need is Hall of Fame quarterback teaching Hall of Fame quarterback to going down. And really, I think I think there's some element of that. I mean, there's obviously, you see some elements of Rodgers' game, or Favre's game and Rodgers' game and Love. Like, we've already seen some of that. I'm not dismissing that entirely, but I think it's, when it comes to that development curve, I don't think it's a good coincidence that they had the same exact guy, Tom Clements, be responsible both times for bringing up the next heir apparent quarterback, and how much that's played into the success. If it was just about quarterback sitting behind a good quarterback or whatever, I think that would be a lot easier model for other teams to replicate. But I think there's a real reason why the Packers have nailed it down. I think it has a lot to do with, and a lot of credit given to Tom Clements as their quarterbacks coach.
One of the things I was hearing when we went to Josh Dobbs this year was, see, any quarterback will work great under O'Connell's offense. He's a quarterback whisperer, and then after 2 weeks, after 3 weeks, it was like, why can't he teach? Why can't he make the offense work around Josh Dobbs' strengths? He can't do, what's going on with Quasey or Kevin O'Connell? Fire him. He can't, and that's the thing. People would talk about, hey, Kevin O'Connell wants to draft his guy. Well, his guys have been Kirk Cousins-esque or Stafford-esque. It hasn't been the mobile quarterback. Do you have some fears that he, even though he was a guy that ran a 4.5 in the combine, and he was a mobile dude, that he is not adapting his offense to the strengths of a mobile quarterback?
I think what it really comes down to is,
Was it an
can the
in-season thing,
quarterback.
maybe? I don't know.
Well, I think it's an in-season thing, but I'd also say is, like, let's say Jayden Daniels. Okay, he's the most mobile quarterback in the class.
And I love
Can
him.
he? Yeah, he's great. He's the number one quarterback on my board.
Mine
To be
too.
honest. Yeah.
Mine too, and a bunch of other my buddies. So yeah.
Yeah. So it's can he fit in what KOC is asking him to do from the pocket? And then can he add on top of that with his legs? I think is kind of what we saw last year. And for better or worse, I think there's a lot of people out there that'll say Kevin O'Connell should just completely adapt his offense to fit his quarterback. And and that was a complaint last year. But I think what we saw is that Kevin O'Connell, wants a guy that can fit his offense and then do things on top of that, right? And I think what we saw over time last year with the Pasternaut is that he was just doing a bunch of improvising and stuff, and eventually other teams are also going to catch up on that. Like
Yeah,
we kind
they
of
caught
forget
up
that.
on it. They were more disciplined and rushing and stuff. Yeah.
Right. So the defense is adapted to Josh Dobbs too. It wasn't just that our offense got worse over that time. So I think when it comes to Jayden Daniels, is can he do the things that Kevin O'Connell wants him to do to run that Shanahan McVay style offense? But then also when things break down, can you go on the move and make that run or make that special play that Josh Dobbs did? And I think really what it came up to is that once Josh Dobbs couldn't do those crazy, extremely lucky improvisational, plays, after that entering in that third week or whatever, and he had to really settle down and play in Kevin O'Connell's offense, it just didn't work, as well. And that was the part of it. Now, I think that Kevin O'Connell can do a lot more to adapt in an offseason to fit the offense around, maybe a guy like Jayden Daniels' skill set a little bit more. It's harder to do in season, but I think that the baseline expectation is, can you do the stuff in Kevin O'Connell's offense, and then what can you do on top of that that's special? And I think there's also kind of this misconception that if you're a running quarterback, that you can't be a pocket quarterback too, that you have to be one or the other. And so
And I think he's both,
yeah,
honestly.
I think he's both too. And you look at like his, some of the data and stuff I've been reviewing over the past about month and a half is that Jayden Daniels is one of the most accurate. He's right up there with as one of the most accurate passers in this draft class, and especially his deep accuracy. And I know that Kevin O'Connell likes to push the ball up the field, and so he's got those traits that Kevin O'Connell looks for, and then also he's this dynamic runner. Now, there's some things that make me a little bit worried about Jayden Daniels, his pressure to sack ratio, how often do you get sacked after you get pressured is pretty high. And that's a sticky stat that translates well from college to the professional game. And then really just the amount of times that he scrambles is extremely high, meaning that, even relative, if you looked at Justin Fields or Lamar Jackson when they were in college, the percent of time in which he just scrambled next to them is that they have similar athletic traits. I think that just means that he's not necessarily looking downfield as much when he scrambles, and that's something that he can develop. But I think in Kevin O'Connell's offense, he's going to be looking for a guy that says, when I break the pocket, am I still keeping my eyes downfield and trying to move the ball that way rather than, just trying to use my legs for the first down. And I actually think that is something that, which I think Thor Nystrom earlier this week was talking a lot about, is one of JJ McCarthy's, who I'm also extremely high on, is that JJ McCarthy is extremely good at throwing on the move and then also looking downfield while he's on the move, to complete passes, which is why I think I agree with Thor that JJ McCarthy would be a really good fit in Kevin O'Connell's scheme.
Yeah, he really opened my eyes with the stats of like over 70 some percent completion percentage on the move and stuff like that. You did make a point about Jayden Daniels, like you said I got your data you sent me. Your pressure to sack ratio was 20.2. Caleb was worse, 23.2. Drake May 19.5, JJ McCarthy 16.5, Michael Penix and Bo Nix
Incredibly
7.6 to
low.
7.6, which I might, and let me guess how fast they throw the ball, like their offense and how fast they throw the ball, maybe at least Bo Nix.
Yeah, Bo Nix, definitely, he got the ball out quickly. So I think 66.7. So 2/3 of Bo Nix's passes this past year were between 0 and 9 air yards. So he was not having these Kevin O'Connell long developing routes, 7-step drop type plays that the Vikings offense runs. I mean, he was basically getting the ball and he was rifling it out. And so that's kind of like when you listen to Thor, other draft experts, when they watch the tape, that's what they're seeing as well, is saying that he just ran an offense. And that's not to say that Bo Nix can't run the Kevin O'Connell offense. I am a big believer in saying just because there isn't evidence of something doesn't mean a guy can't do it. I mean, I think that there are some plays in which Bo Nix threw the ball downfield and had some long developing plays and did things that you're looking for. But the offense that he was in just was very, very quick.
If I may interject something there, and I was having this conversation with Thor, and he would talk about JJ McCarthy, and he's like, he was just a quarterback that's so dynamic that he was put into this constrained offense, and that's why you don't have the quantity of plays that will show you how great he is, which I agree with all of that. But then to go to Bo Nix and say, hey, he throws the ball quick. Well, can't you say the same thing as he was put into an offense that forced him to get rid of the ball quick?
Yeah.
And it was funny. I saw him in the Senior Bowl, and it was like every pass they had him throw was a short, shallow crossing route. But the time he did get to throw one deep on a flea flicker, he dropped a dime, and the defender yanked down the receiver's arm on a no call. And it was a perfect throw. It's like I've seen Bo Nix make throws, but like you said, most of his throws are air yards less than 9.
Yeah, I mean, Bo Nix, if you look at the data, he's the most accurate passer in this class at every single level, from short to medium to deep. He's
if you're Vocal Vike, if you're watching, listen here, because I'm not the biggest Bo Nix fan, but I don't see any problems with him.
Yeah,
per se.
Jay Daniels is a little bit better throwing deep, but Bo Nix is right there with him. And so
I saw those throws. Those throws Bo Nix makes, and I was like, there's not a ton of them, but holy crap, he can do it.
So in all my analytical and data study, there was one statistic that really stuck out to me as being a real flaw in Bo Nix's game, is that, and maybe this is still a product of the offense, but when you look at on 3rd and 4th down, those money downs that are so important, he was the least willing quarterback to throw the ball past the sticks out of any of them. And then when you combine that with his accuracy, he was incredibly. So I did a compiling of, okay, how many times per drop back did a quarterback throw a ball accurately past the sticks on 3rd and 4th down? And Bo Nix was incredibly low in both those things. Not because he wasn't accurate, but because he just wasn't willing to throw the ball past the sticks. Now, the guy and I did it both on all 3rd downs, and then I looked at it from 3rd and 5.
JJ was number 1, I bet.
JJ McCarthy was number 1 in all 3rd downs and 4th downs, and he was also number 1 in 3rd and 4th downs, 3rd and 5 and longer. So when the defense knows that you have to throw the ball, he was still the best. And there's clips and stuff out there. I'm not the biggest tape guy. I know that my strength is more in analytics. But just watching some of those plays on 3rd down, you can see situations where he passes up a shallow crosser or a guy running across the middle that's open, and he uses his legs to prolong. He keeps his eyes downfield, and then he finds a guy that's past the sticks because he has that awareness on the football field that he knows that he's trying to pick up that 3rd down. And so
for me, I was like unaware of what Bo Nix's mental capacity was and decision process, and that was the open thing I did not know quite yet about. And those kind of numbers kind of tell me that maybe he isn't as advanced, and he's 3 years older than JJ McCarthy. So I told a guy, even though I didn't have JJ McCarthy as ranked 4th or 3rd like some people, it was only because of the unknown about him, and just not enough volume there. But I would still take him earlier because the reward is so much greater for me being 3 years younger.
There's never a way to find out, who this guy's going to be 100% good or not. I mean, all of it is a risk calculation, right? How comfortable are you guy? And then also it's not only like, how well can this guy succeed in the NFL, but how well can he succeed in my scheme, with my weapons, with my team, with my situation? And it's all just a factor of varying degrees of risk or potential, opportunities. And so that's when you look like a calculation of should the Vikings trade up from 11 to 3, something like that, or take JJ McCarthy at 11, which I think he's going to end up going. If we're going to want JJ McCarthy, I think we're going to have to trade up. But just for this example, I actually put out a Twitter poll about a week ago, looking at would you rather trade 3 first rounders to get from 11 to 3 to take Jayden Daniels, or would you rather trade? I think it was like a day 3 pick and a third or second rounder next year to move up to take JJ McCarthy at 7. So you still have to trade up. You're still losing capital, but it's not 3 first rounds like Jayden Daniels. And that's why I asked Twitter, like, what do you think of that between those two things? And majority of people still wanted to trade up for, Jayden Daniels. I think it was 60-40. And it's because a lot of people in their mind are saying, I want the guy that's got the best traits that can, has the most likelihood of success. Well,
I think it's more they think the more exciting player too. I know that's got to be part of it.
That could be, but I mean, it's all so in my mind. I was saying, okay, and I voiced this on Twitter. I was just like, okay, so what's in your mind? I'll ask you, Dave. What's the percent chance that you think that Jayden Daniels will be a franchise quarterback, and then what percent chance do you think that JJ McCarthy is going to be a franchise quarterback?
I'm going to say 50-50 on both of them, honestly.
Well, if it's 50-50 on both of them, then why would you trade an extra 2 first-round picks to go up and get Jayden Daniels at 3 instead of taking JJ McCarthy at 7? So that's really what I think to help answer for fans this. And I think this is kind of
that's why I say it's the more exciting player.
Right.
I think that's why I think they lean towards that.
But I think that's the way that Kwesi thinks is he thinks in risk and opportunity and percentages. Nothing in his mind is absolute. It's like, what gives me the best chance? And so, even if you were to say, okay, I think 65% chance that Jayden Daniels could be our franchise quarterback and 45% for JJ McCarthy. How much is that 20% worth in your mind? How many draft picks? How much draft capital? How much? And those are the calculations that I think that you gotta balance in your mind. Is for some people they would pay a lot for that 20%. Other people, you might want to keep the draft picks because that pick 42 or whatever those next 2 first rounders could be. Island cornerback and a Pro Bowl edge rusher. You just never know what's going to be in that box. Over the next 2 years. And so that's why I think that this debate and this thing about what to do, let's say the Vikings decide we're taking a quarterback this year, how does the league have those picks? And then how far do you need to get your guy? The only thing that I want them to do is I want them to draft someone with conviction. I want them to say, we think that JJ McCarthy, or we think Jayden Daniels is our guy, or we think Drake May.
I think honestly, those two are the guys that have proven that they have the dedication and have shown
we're on the same page. I think Caleb Williams is going 1, so I kind of eliminate him from the conversation. I have some of my doubts a little bit about Drake May based on some of the analytical stuff. His accuracy numbers are pretty low relative to quarterbacks. And I think that's why we're starting to hear whispers of him being maybe a quarterback that drops, or Jayden Daniels overtaking him for potentially QB2 in the draft for the Commanders. You're seeing a lot more mocks saying Jayden Daniels to 2 as opposed to Drake May. So maybe it won't even be a choice. Maybe it'll be between Drake May and JJ McCarthy. We have a long way to go, but I'm just saying it's the way it plays out on top. It's going to be really fascinating. And also, like I said, I just want the Vikings to say, we really think that this is going to be our franchise guy, or we believe in this guy, and we're going to make sure that we go get him instead of just letting guys fall to them and see what it works. Or maybe we trade back and maybe we can still get Bo Nix, or we trade up in the second round. I think everything we've heard from this team is that we are not looking for, to get, whoever's left, at available, is that we want a franchise guy that could be our guy for the next 10 years. I think that's something that Ben Gessling has really harped on his reporting, and I believe it. So, no matter who it is up top, I want them to go up and get him if we're deciding that we're going to draft a quarterback.
And we talked about moving down in the first, but you can move down in the second if you still have your second round pick. Like if we get, and this is the thing, if we trade up, I really want us to keep our second this year, because we can move with that second and pick up some spots, pick up some picks, maybe get extra fourth. Who knows? Maybe somehow we can move down a couple of spots and a couple times and still get a Devontae Sweat
Yeah.
and have another third and another pick because we moved twice and got the guy we wanted.
But here's
I'm so
the thing.
smart.
Here's the thing, Dave. So if you decide that you want to trade a future first instead of the second this year, which is definitely something that you could do, and I could understand the logic for it. But if we're going to be starting that rookie quarterback that we're trading up for, and
well, I'm not saying instead of. I would rather give the second than any first. I'm just saying.
I just want to find out.
I seen one out there that was we trade our top three or our 3 first rounders and 2 seconds and a third, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, that'd be like first pick territory. That's
right.
A lot.
I'm like, whoa. So I'm just saying it would be nice. It would be only take 3 first and not take our second also. So
yeah, okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I'm not crazy.
Well, I didn't think you were. I just wanted to clarify.
But hey, I appreciate you coming on, man. We've gone an hour. I didn't expect it to go this long. It was awesome hearing from you, man. Don't be a stranger. Before we leave, tell us where you can find you again.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Twitter at Nicholas M. Miller, and then also on YouTube on Climbing the Pocket. We're going to do some more shows and some stuff coming up here soon, especially maybe around the combine and the draft and the off season. But those are the top places. Dave, I really appreciate the time on here. It's been fun. Enjoyed the back and forth, and I'll also send you some of that DVOA data so you can share that as well.
Yeah, I need to learn something. Here we go. I do, honestly. That stuff confusing. They say DVOA is 28.73. I have no idea what that means, and nobody else does either. So please tell me. So I would love to see it. But hey, we got to do this again. We got to get you on a live show. I love it. And Skull Vikes.
Skull Vikes.